Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Virginia Kwok from the English Department, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Thank the organizer of the conference. I'm very glad to be here today to present some highlights of my research project. Any comments, questions, suggestions after the presentation are very welcome. I hope you could hear me well because I'm wearing the surgical mask. I hope you could be able to hear that clearly. The topic of my presentation is Hong Kong University students out-of-class English learning through YouTube, a multi-case study from a learner autonomy perspective. So what is the research about? I'm looking at university students' perceptions and practices of out-of-class English learning through YouTube. You might ask, why is the study conducted? Well, for those of you who love the English language, learning it might not be a problem, but for many students who lack the motivation to do so, what are some of the ways that we can help them learn both inside and outside the classrooms? That's a question which has been on my mind for a long time already. In search of an answer, technology seems to offer much hope. Besides, given the popularity of YouTube in recent decades, we know that it has become a prevalent Web 2.0 tool used and enjoyed by a great number of people, both globally and here in Hong Kong, especially among the younger generations. Also, it's understood that perceptions affect practices. So by understanding perceptions of young people, we can better know their learning needs and interests, thus helping them to learn the language better. Finally, as language educators, we want to foster autonomous learning for our students. This is especially the case for university students. How do they perceive this technological tool? Can it help them become better language learners and users of English? Is the question that I wish to answer. The findings, I believe, will offer insights to teachers who seek a better nexus of the formal and the informal in language learning. However, there are some misconceptions about autonomous learning that need to be avoided. The reduction of autonomous learning to a set of skills, the first one. Secondly, avoidance of language learning specific issues. And finally, learning in isolation. Instead, we want to develop students of the 21st century to have the knowledge, skills, and attitude to learn the language well, paying attention to the basic 4 skills of language, as well as grammatical, grammatic, and intercultural competence, being able to learn independently, as well as learning it by collaborating with others. Some review of the literature and previous studies, which you can see in the slide here. Self-regulated, independent, autonomous learning are considered synonymous, and in Table 2, Benson and Chen and Ma provide insights into how Hong Kong University students learn English informally through YouTube outside the classrooms. Other studies in overseas contexts gave us a good picture of informal, independent online learning on YouTube. Digital literacy, how to support students without compromising their autonomy and independent learning, and comparing informal versus deliberate learning with new technologies, the ways in which teachers can bridge formal and informal learning spaces, such as those studies carried out in the UK by Tang and Trinder. Nevertheless, we can see that previous literature are mostly quantitative studies looking at technology in general, the use of YouTube inside the classrooms, and studies from the teacher's perspectives. Little research has examined students' digital practices on YouTube and their perceptions of using this Web 2.0 tool for language learning outside the classrooms. After identifying the research gaps, here are the questions that I wish to answer. First, what are Hong Kong University students' perceptions of informal learning of English on YouTube? 2, what are the factors affecting these perceptions? The methodology that I adopt is primarily a qualitative one, and the participants in the research are full-time undergraduate students in a Hong Kong university. The focus are how students' perceptions of YouTube influence their viewing habits and informal learning of English on this Web 2.0 platform. So the pilot study was conducted in 2 phases. The first one, here is the profile. You can see on the PowerPoint slide there. 12 participants took part, with 2 also. Apart from filling in the questionnaire, they attended interviews and submitting their reflective learning journals as well. The second phase, there were 11 participants, and 3 of them also, apart from completing the questionnaire also attended interviews and reflective learning journals. The difference between the first and the second phase is that the first one was conducted face-to-face, that's the pre-COVID era, and the second phase, due to the pandemic, so this has to be done online, interviews conducted through Zoom. So the research instruments used, as you can see, questionnaires, semi-structured interviews, and reflective journals. Questions that students were asked include why and how they learn English on YouTube, the criteria for good videos, and its impact on the English proficiency. So the theoretical framework that I adopted is Benson's autonomy model, and the analytical framework is Lai's framework of university students' self-directed technologies for language learning. There are 9 aspects altogether. The attitudinal factors, which are the most important for this study, they include perceived usefulness, educational compatibility, and language learning motivation. So here comes the findings of the study. Students perceive YouTube to be primarily for entertainment, but changes are evolving as learners begin to see the potentials of some videos that facilitate autonomous language learning. And I have 5 focal case participants. Let's hear their stories. Kelvin is an English major year 1 student. He considers YouTube to be primarily for entertainment, but he will use it for improving his pronunciation if he does learn English on YouTube. He seldom watches videos on YouTube outside of class time because he thinks that he has got enough English learning during formal lectures already, but he loves video games like many boys do, and to the extent that he even designs and creates his own gaming videos and tutorials in English and sharing them with others on YouTube. Edmund's story, he's also an English major, first-year student. He thinks that YouTube is useful for those who can't have enough English learning in schools or in formal settings, not for English majors, that means. So but he loves watching funny videos as a way of relaxation, and occasionally he'll watch Japanese videos and learn the content by looking at the subtitles. But he questions the translation sometimes. If he really learns English on YouTube, it will be about informal English use for daily conversations rather than for academic purposes. For example, looking at the differences between British and American English. Then the third full case participant is Kitty. She is a BBA major, year 5 student. She used to attend courses offered by a language center outside the university to brush up her exam skills before she sits for DSE and IELTS test. But now she watches those content on video, on YouTube videos instead, because they are offered for free. She loves traveling and enjoys watching travel vlogs, and especially those electronic gadgets. And she'll also learn about current affairs in English. She'll watch them through BBC News. And Susan is a first-year medicine major. She watches lots of YouTube videos in Cantonese in the past. They are for entertainment, variety shows, but after getting into university, she watches more videos in English. For example, a brief history of alcohol, what is schizophrenia, how do blood transfusions work, etc. She learns about medical terms in English. Through the subtitles, she understands the content better. And in her spare time, she will watch ancient Greek myths to learn about some vocabulary through these animated videos. Finally, John, he is a year 5 math and math education major. He doesn't think YouTube videos are useful for his English learning. He may watch some videos that are related to his majors of study, for example, concepts of algebra in mathematics. But in his spare time, he enjoys music a lot, especially videos that teach others how to play the piano and violin. If he does learn English on YouTube, it will be through the English songs, and it helps them in expressing his emotions apart from useful vocabulary and stylistic way of expression in English. So here we can see that students actually enjoy learning through YouTube very much. that is in line with previous studies. They find learning on YouTube more engaging than simply reading texts or listening to audio recordings because of the visual stimulation. But in terms of the language learning motivation, English majors find YouTube less useful than the non-English major ones, probably because they have greater exposure to the English language in class. So the question is, what is the place for written text in the age of multimodality at university? This is something that we can think about. Then after answering the first research question, the second question will be the factors that are shaping students' perceptions. So here, the learner factors include language learning history, metacognitive knowledge, learner beliefs, and sense of self plus future self. The learning condition factors are the external guidance and the availability of resources. Because of the time constraint today, I'll spare you the details. I hope you can read my paper or the dissertation someday. So we can see that learner perceptions due to disciplinary differences and personal interests also lead to variations in the perceived usefulness, educational compatibility, and language learning motivation of using YouTube to learn English outside of class time. This affects the choice of videos and strategies to improve vocabulary, listening, and presentation skills on YouTube. On the right-hand side, you can see some examples. And for improving vocabulary, knowledge, and listening skills, yes, students think that YouTube is helpful, but for sharpening writing or speaking skills, they think that it's not that helpful because after all, productive skills need two-way communication with a learning partner or partners and feedback from a teacher in order to see the improvement. For subtitles, it's interesting to see that students, those who are stronger in English will choose subtitles in Chinese, while those weaker in English will choose English subtitles when they watch YouTube. This contradicts with some earlier studies and findings. But we can see that subtitles can help students, and one of the features that learners actually can choose the language of the subtitles on YouTube offers them lots of autonomy, and they find this too very helpful. The students, they don't leave lots of comments on YouTube after watching, which is part of the learning according to Benson. But the participants in my pilot study, they haven't developed this learning habit, so to speak, to interact with others through commenting. So here is a learning gap. From the autonomy model proposed by Benson, we can see that in the 21st century, with the help of technology, it appears that more learning is taking place out of class, informally, and self-directed, but there's still a difference between an instructed and non-instructed pedagogy. Finding the interests and needs of the students are what teachers can do. So what I learned outside the classroom can supplement what is learned inside. Besides, using YouTube to supplement formal learning depends on learners' ability and willingness to do so. Being able to learn English autonomously on YouTube rely on learners' ability to discern and to choose videos of challenging nature and the willingness of them to invest time to do so. If they find them useful and educationally compatible, then they are willing to invest the time. They're motivated to act on the perceived affordances of YouTube and watch those videos to learn English. So some of the videos that students watched include BBC News, travel vlogs, and some videos that they produced, gaming videos in English, creative thinking and the English language, IT in our daily lives. The first two are produced individually, and the third one in collaboration. The first video is produced for leisure purposes, while the second and third are part of the course requirement. So what are the implications? The roles of teachers in out-of-class learning is something that we can think about further, and the materials and learning activities design will also have to be changed accordingly. The recommendations include developing students' abilities to perceive the usefulness and the relevance of certain videos and to learn autonomously. We can help them through digital multiliteracy training, through the provision of resources that include social, cultural, semiotic, linguistic, and spatial ones. So for directions of future research, we can see that the extent to which learner perceptions shape autonomous language learning on YouTube. This multimodal tool that is enjoyed and used by lots of young people. The Web 2.0 platform's potential to bridge formal and informal learning in the 21st century language learning. So here comes the conclusion. Informal out-of-class self-directed learning will become more common and prevalent as time goes by in the 21st century, although instructed versus non-instructed pedagogy still leaves much room for debate. However, one thing that can be certain is that students will benefit more if they are equipped with the attitude, knowledge, and skills to learn English or other languages autonomously on YouTube and pick up not only the linguistic, but also the cultural nuances as well, so they can become competent language learners and users of English in the global world. So that's all for my presentation. See if there are any questions, comments from the floor. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Kwok. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Kwok? Feel free to raise your hand or leave your questions in the chat box. Well, I see a question from Chester, and he asked, how did you select the participants in this study, and are there any criteria?
Yes, thank you, Chester, for the question. So the selection criteria will be, the students will be full-time undergraduate students, learners of English as a second or foreign language. They are speaking Cantonese as their L1, they're residing in Hong Kong, and that they are willing to share the experience. So that will be their selection criteria.
I see, thank you.
Thank you.
I see a question from Alex, and she asked how to use YouTube to motivate lower proficient English learner.
Yeah, thank you, Alice, for the question. That's a very important question, which also, as a starting point for my research project, how to motivate students, those who lack the motivation to learn. So I think we could, it's important that we start from the point that what the students are interested in. Like one of my vocal case participants, if you still could recall, John, he doesn't have a high English language proficiency, and at first he doesn't think, that he can learn any useful language skills on YouTube. But after finding out that he's interested in music, actually, then he got the motivation to go there and listen to some music, then some songs. Through the English songs, there are some lyrics, so that will arouse the interest. In one of the interviews that John shared, was that those words that comes with music, and that what makes him find it too attractive to learn the language. Then he is curious to find out the meaning, of the vocabulary, how to pronounce the words. So he quoted two examples, the theme song of the movie Titanic, My Heart Will Go On, and the other one is You Raise Me Up. So yeah, this will be the things that, finding out what they're interested in and try to bridge the learning gap through that way. I hope that answers your questions. Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Well, actually, I think it's time for the next presentation.
Okay,
so
sure.
thank you, Ms. Kwok, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now let's